Hey, this is Dan with Pain Free You. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Tula Fay, and she's from Sedona, Arizona. Uh, Welcome, Tula. Tula has
Hi, Dan.
decided to, share her success, her progress, and her results with a mind-body approach towards whatever chronic symptom she has. So Tula and I have not really spoken before. I don't believe so. Maybe through comments a little bit on the internet, but why don't you introduce yourself, Tula? Say hello to the audience and start telling us a story. Take us on a journey.
Okay, and we did meet, Dan, March 11th, 2022, but you probably don't recognize me because I was in pretty tough shape then.
It's possible.
But we'll get to that. Um, okay, so my journey began. I took a trip to Israel, to Jerusalem, and I was in the Dead Sea on a day where it wasn't dead. It was very stormy, and they shared with us, don't go in because it's too dangerous. And of course, my nature, I'm very much a risk taker. I'm like, gee, I don't know the next time I'm going to be in Jerusalem. So I went in with some young lads from the UK and some gals, med students from DC. We did get pummeled by waves, and I fell, and my ankle got stuck under a rock as I was falling.
Okay.
And unbeknownst to me, I broke my ankle.
Okay.
But a thing about my background is I've been an endurance athlete my whole life since starting at age 5. So I have a pretty high non comfort tolerance.
Hmm.
So I didn't think anything of it. And at that time, in fact, my whole life, being a TMS personality, I am a A plus perfectionist, hard driving businesswoman, very soft personality though, very good manager because I'm so kind, compassionate. People really liked working with me, but very driven. And my ethos was I just expected my body to get up every morning, run a 5 or 10K. I did 1,000 sit ups every morning, 260 push ups, and 200 pull ups. Yeah. And then I worked for 14 hours at Oracle, a big software company some of you've heard of. And then at night, I'm actually really a writer. So at night, I would write novel chapters, haikus, or poems, depending how much time I had in between being a mom. My son was in all of this. The time that trip to Jerusalem happened, I was going through a separation with my husband. It had been going on 4 years. I hadn't dated anyone. I had just been focused on my son and my work. But when I was in Jerusalem, interestingly, there's an elite fighting unit over there, Israeli Special Forces, and I met a chap in that unit who pursued me. And I thought, well, I'm always such a square. maybe I maybe I should let him pursue me. Boy, what a powder keg of emotions, right? I'm on a trip to the Holy Land. I've been by myself after a separation for 4 years, but I decide to let this guy pursue me, and then I break my ankle. It's just a cocktail for the perfect storm.
Right.
I went back home and I started having trouble putting weight on my ankle, and I knew something was wrong. So I made an appointment with an orthopedist, and he missed the break on the X-ray. And so I was so coked up on overachievement, my to avoid feeling the tough childhood apparently I went through. I didn't know it was so tough until I met Rita La Barbera, who coached me, and she said, how have you made it this long without having TMS?
Right.
I what I did to not feel and to like live from the neck up completely intellectually was work and exercise. So as I'm no longer able to walk, I'm still managing this high performing team. I'm still exercising on it.
Right.
And over the months I started, it's probably 5 months, I just got sicker and sicker. And then one morning I woke up. I think it was after they put it in one of those boot things. I had extreme nerve pain, but I didn't know it was extreme nerve pain. I just knew it was extreme pain.
Right.
And I went and I said, what's going on with me? And they said, well, I'm sure you're fine. Let's put you in a cast and put you in bed for 6 months. Whoa, that's when my nervous system went cattywampus. You take someone who's been, working out every day since they're 5 years old, put them in bed, stretch, and then the area that's screaming, immobilize it. So I fell apart. My husband, with whom I'd been separated, took me back in. And then I got that whole layer of I'm not safe. My husband and I don't get along.
Right.
I'm now stuck in bed, can't move. My husband's very resentful of me because, we separated in the first place. And I just didn't know what to do. Everyone said, well, maybe you're crazy. I'm like, gee, I'm a pretty rational gal. That's not been an issue of mine in life.
Right.
Well, long story short, I found out about the Spiro Clinic, which you've probably heard of, where a lot of people go when they're given the diagnosis of CRPS. I'm going to tell you one thing right now. I don't believe in that diagnosis. It's just another form of TMS. It's a little more in your face form, like fibromyalgia. Hi,
Hmm.
cutie, in the background.
Oh,
Your kitty.
yeah, Finn.
Hi. But I don't believe in the label, but I went hoping that that would fix me. I wouldn't have to change my life. I could just go there, do whatever the treatment was and get better. Well, actually, the machines they have there did work for me. My pain would always go to zero, but without changing my mind, emotions. Actually, in my case, not everyone does. I needed to make huge life changes for safety.
Okay.
So, bless their hearts, they help a lot of people. I left Spiro not healed. Then my friend Paulita, who I met at Spiro, who also had a tough time there, sent me a video. I think that chap from Crushing Doubt, Dan Ratner,
Hmm.
he had done a video with Rita La Barbera and Tamara Gorin. And I want to pause right there. I may get emotional. They saved my life.
Okay.
Those two women, because I saw the video and I thought, wow, they're my age, we're sort of more midlife, and they got better. And Rita had full body like me.
Sure.
And so again, bless their hearts, I had a call with Rita. At this point, I want to say this because I want people, if you knew me today, you'd never know I went through anything. I swim 9 miles a week again. I work full time. I go to Bible college part time. I'm constantly volunteering for stuff because I love to be of service.
Right.
You'd never know I went through anything. So I want to tell this for the other people who've gotten this nonsense label, CRPS. It's just TMS. It's just mind body. That I had reached a point when I met Rita where I was in bed. I was so exhausted, just taking a bath would take all my energy. I was so sound sensitive, I was wearing earplugs. I was so light sensitive, I was wearing sunglasses and a hat. I couldn't wear clothes anymore. I was wearing like a potato sack shirt and potato sack pants, no undergarments, no shoes. And I didn't talk above a whisper. I mean, maybe not even a whisper. I'm not even sure how Rita heard me on the calls. And I don't even know the level of compassion, Dan, that you, Rita, Tamara, the guy who finally got me to accept the diagnosis, and you know all these people because they've all done success videos with you. Nick Koutsas, he's the one who finally got me to say, Tula, it's just mind body. Stop whatever else you're doing and just do the work. And he got through to me because his upbringing and his personality are very similar to mine. So when he said that, I thought, if he can do it, then why can't I? And I also talked to Jij Kakel, who you did a video with. She's fantastic. She really, really helped me. And this chap, Joseph Vargas, also fantastic. I talked to someone who's not in our TMS realm, but had both cancer and CRPS and recovered through Qigong,
Okay.
Qigong and lots of life changes. And I guess this chap, Joe Dispenza, Tom Loswick, he was so encouraging to me. And Stacy Dix, I coached with her a bit. So there's a litany of people. And the reason I say this is I know some of you out there are probably thinking, I just want to go to one person. I just want to get better doing one thing. That is very possible, especially if you're one of those blessed individuals who could read that book, Sarno's book, and get better. But most of us need to get a little treasure from different people. I needed to. Everybody had a little treasure. And Dan, when I met with you, yeah, you won't recognize me. I was in bed. I was afraid to move even my arm at that point. And you were so compassionate and encouraging. And you said, Tula, what movement do you like to do? And I said, well, I love lap swimming. And, can you, I mean, at that time, I couldn't even imagine like moving my hand in bed. And you said, well, why don't you start just going to the pool, looking at the pool, putting your foot in the pool, maybe just you, since it was mostly my lower body that was the real challenge,
Hmm.
just maybe a few strokes with your arms. Well, God bless you, Dan. That's what I did. Not right away. Took me about a month to, to let your advice sink in. But I went to the pool and I started with just my arms. My brain obviously went berserk, all kinds of symptoms. But that was the beginning of indifference because here was my reaction. I swam.
Right.
I didn't care. I'm like, I'm swimming. No, it's just with my arms, just a few laps, but I was swimming. Long story short, probably over the period of a year and a half, I gradually was more vigorous, went longer, added my legs. At first, just like every few strokes, I'd add my legs. Then every stroke. Then the pièce de la résistance was when I added pushing off the wall with my feet and real flip turns again. So
Hmm.
yeah, now as I mentioned, I'm back swimming. I don't know, maybe 1 to 3 miles every morning before work.
Wow.
And so if you're listening to how far I fell, you and the people I've heard, I don't. My brain is so changed toward gratitude and positivity. It's hard for me to go back and think of how I was. But if you're out there right now and you've lost will to live, hello, I was there.
Right.
Um, Trust me, it was so dark. I would try to sleep as much as possible, get up at 11, and then my first thought was, oh great, I only have to be up 6 hours before I can go to bed again. That's and I was lying in bed doing exactly what you're not supposed to do, monitoring symptoms all day, you know, and what did that do? It ramped them way up. Ramped them up. Don't do that. But Dan, I love your videos. I'm as you can tell, I'm a very ebullient, joyful person by nature. So maybe I should stop and take a breath before I
Okay.
continue. So let you share your wisdom because you know quite a lot more than I.
Well, I mean, this is your story. This isn't, Dan's presentation today. Um, I guess I want to understand because we like to highlight main symptoms because they go into the title and then people can search through the success stories and say, oh, this person had something like I did. So, did you have a diagnosis of fibro or CRPS, or
Yes,
it mostly back or body pain? Was it defined as
CR,
neuropathy with the nerve pain? Like, what were some of the catch medical terms so we can kind of incorporate that and allow it?
all the nonsense I was told. Yeah, CRPS. It started in obviously where my broken ankle was, and then it spread to my right leg, left leg, hips, back. I actually don't think there was a place in my body it wasn't. back, arms, face, especially the left side of my face. It sort of follows the trajectory of my left brain, left head down to right leg. But it was really only challenging like 10 plus, hips down to feet.
Okay.
Other labels: chronic fatigue, mold toxicity, irritable bowel, depression, anxiety, OCD. And we'll talk about that because that's absolutely key to my recovery. And it's a very specific type of OCD. I guess I'll bring this up now.
Sure.
Not everyone with TMS has sensory motor or somatic OCD, but I think everyone who has somatic or sensory motor OCD has TMS. What somatic or sensory motor OCD is you're one of the people who is locked in on your body symptoms. I'm not talking you notice them occasionally, you're bummed out when they're high. You are 24/7 monitoring them. It is a type of OCD that very few people know about. And Dan had a great video. You had a great video on the turning point for you was you were sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm-hmm.
Preach, brother, because that was my turning point. Last Thanksgiving, so I'm in the wilderness. Let's say I'm in the wilderness, and I'm not doing it right like Jesus, avoiding every temptation. I fell into every physical treatment, spent all kinds of money on all kinds of nonsense, believed all these diagnoses. Oh, I should say hyperacusis for the ear sensitivity. My eyesight was affected. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember everything they said. All kinds of nonsense. But last November, I'm like, I am sick and tired of sick and tired. If the rest of my life is going to be lying on bed, looking at the ceiling, I'd rather die trying to get better than do this anymore. So I found this. I happen to be Christian. Obviously, you don't have to be a person of faith to get better. This is a brain science thing, but I happen to be Christian. And if you do, whatever your faith path, if you do believe in a higher power, huge message of safety, because your higher power will never leave you nor forsake you and always, always guide you and unconditionally love you no matter what. So
Right.
if you do have a higher power, lean on your higher power because it's a source of great safety and strength. But I was talking to God and I said, God, I guide me. I found this thing called Healing Journeys Today on the web, which is a bunch of Christian people who've recovered from supposedly incurable things, including Colleen Iamarino, who recovered from CRPS in the early 2000s when it was still called RSD and it was basically a death sentence. And she walked out her healing with the Lord because the Lord, in the Bible, it says, by his stripes you were healed, past tense healed. Very same thing Sarno says. There's nothing wrong with you. Go live your life. So Colleen believed that. She believed that Bible passage and she, full body CRPS. Now she's totally fine and working, running a website for a company. And that was before, very early on. So she was a hero to me. But another chap on Healing Journeys Today has something called the Sound Mind Show. And his name is Dr. Kevin Chapman. He's in Louisville, Kentucky, and he runs a center called the Center for Anxiety and Related Disorders, or K-CARDS. Oh, Kevin did that. The Kentucky Center for Anxiety and Related Disorders. I called him, and I had he's pricey. He's a big deal. So I had a few sessions with him, and here's what his take was on me. Tula, you strike me as an incredibly joyful person, and you've lost your joy. I think you have something called anhedonia, which is just a fancy way of saying you can't feel pleasure anymore, nor do you even go out and look for it. Your whole life is obsessively centered around getting better. And guess what? That's exactly what not to do. So at this point, I'm still bedridden, housebound. I'm swimming. I'm swimming a little bit when I can. He said, "What? It's the holiday season. It's Thanksgiving. It's Christmas. What would And I'm Jewish on my mother's side. Hanukkah, Kwanzaa for those folks out there. What do you want to do this holiday season that will bring you joy?" And it surprised me how quickly, because I love the holidays. I said, "Well, I want to put up a tree. I love sending cards to people, like snail mail cards. I want to buy these ornaments with my son's old school pictures. I want to, make ornaments with his face from all his different, first grade, second grade, third grade. And I love to bake. I want to make baked goods for all my neighbors and put them in pretty packages and deliver them." And he said, "Okay, that's your homework." Now, let me tell you, don't underestimate the value of pleasure. And being of service, of course, can be a great pleasure.
Hmm.
I did those simple things and I completely changed, like overnight. And okay, you have a cat. I don't have a cat, but I could be a crazy lady without a cat. If you were to see me in my home, I live by myself. But when I was first teaching myself to hold heavy pots again and bake and cook, I'd be like, "Great job, team. We're doing so awesome." I'm talking to the pots. Or I have a lot of plants. I have this penchant or this interest in buying like Charlie Brown tree plants, almost dead plants, and nursing them back to health. I'd be like, "Great job. You're so beautiful. Let me hug you." I'm like this all day long in my house, giving myself a pep talk. Well, after the holiday season, all of a sudden, I'm not having so much hearing sensitivity anymore. And my eyes, I can look at the computer again. And I'm really starting to swim long distances again. The biggest shift for me was I'm no longer depressed, but I was still anxious. And that's when you had a success video with Christine Barba. And I looked at her and I thought, "Oh my heavens, this gal is exactly like me. I need to reach out to her." So I reached out to her and she told me about sensory motor OCD, somatic OCD, and I was explaining what I was going through. And she said, "Girl, you definitely have this. You're going to want to look up these chaps, OCD Recovery with Robert Ray, and start watching their videos." And specifically this guy, Nick Piniella, a guy from New Jersey. Oh my gosh, he's so crazy. He was actually on in cameo appearances on the Jersey Shore. I adore Nick. I watched his videos and I'm like, "That's it. I'm signing up right away." I signed up with these lads in the UK. Robert Ray's in the UK, in London. And he's got a merry band of probably 5 or 6, some of them in London, and surrounding parts of the UK. Nick's in Colorado now, and Momin's in Pakistan. And I don't know what it was, but as soon as I got in that group, my healing was just, the trajectory was just like this, straight up, because that was the missing link for me, the sensory motor OCD. And not just sensory motor OCD, but there's all different kinds. And there's another kind called relationship OCD, which has a lot to do with the Gabor Mate stuff about if your parents don't attach to you or love you as a child, you'll get into all kinds of nonsense in your thinking. So these guys I just can't say enough how effective the approach is. And
Okay.
I want to share another pivotal moment.
Okay.
I was getting a little too comfortable having a part-time caregiver, kind of punting off my responsibilities to her. I was doing compulsions and avoidance, shirking on my exposures. So I said, "This has got to change. I got to get out of this plateau. What can I do?" For my birthday last spring, I said, "Okay, I'm going to Cleveland." I hadn't ridden a plane for 6 years, certainly not by myself, and certainly not without a wheelchair. But I said, "I'm going to do it." And who goes to Cleveland? Well, actually, the basketball was heating up, so other people would go to Cleveland at that time of year. But I went, and I actually emailed Dan Ratner of Crushing Doubt, and I said, "Do you want to get together for tea?" And he said, "Sure." So while I was there, I chose to take the step of being independent, taking care of myself again. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for my birthday, which I always wanted to do. And I'm a complete music nut. If you're a music nut, don't put away your music like Dan has in his videos, 21 or whatever messages of safety. I feel good. You want to keep that stuff
Right.
because music is just it's to everything. So I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you know how loud that is. I didn't notice anymore. I love NBA basketball. My son and I love going to the games. I hadn't been out at night in 6 years, but I signed up and I went to the see the Heat. That's my son's team, the Heat, play the Cavs. So I'm in their home territory. I'm the only Heat fan in the bloody field house. And I'm screaming and having a great time. Totally forgot about symptoms. So high on life. It was just so great to be back at a ball game again. And the Heat won, thanks to me. No,
Of course, it was you.
I think it was more Jimmy Butler than my screaming. Um, and then and Dan and I decided to make it an exposure. So he took me, he lives in Shaker Heights, which is very fitting of Dan, has the most PhDs per capita of any other place in the US. We went to this noisy bakery that had music, was one of those where everyone, you could barely fit another person in there. And this guy was like crashing dishes right next to our table. And I was totally fine because when you meet someone else who's recovered from TMS, the bond is so strong. I was totally transfixed by everything he was saying.
Right.
So if you're kind of stuck, if you've plateaued in your recovery, you know what? Do something bold. Not necessarily go to Cleveland, but break out of your routine in some way. Because when I came back, I never went back to where I was before. I let go of my caregiver. I had learned how to cook all kinds of stuff again. I always go to a lap swimming pool. I might be in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most lap pools visited globally.
Huh?
And I found a great one there in North Olmsted, Ohio, and oh, it was fantastic. Now they played some poppy country music that wasn't my favorite, but first world problems. so so I had a great trip. So I would definitely share that with people. Um,
May I ask a question?
yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about this sensory motor OCD?
Oh yeah.
It almost sounds like hypervigilance towards every
Oh yeah.
sensation in your body. And so can you share anything about, what you do about that? Because I'm pretty confident there's some of the people in the audience who are so aware of every sensation, and when they sense something new somewhere else, it
Yep.
gets amplified by their fear and then misinterpreted by the brain as, uh-oh, what's that? And then the whole cycle starts again, symptom to symptom to symptom. So can you speak a little bit to this sensory motor OCD and how do you unwind that, so to speak?
Wow, that is so well put, Dan. That is exactly how I was for 5.5 years. That people stop that. That is the road to nowhere. But the thing is, you don't know how to stop without the tools.
Yeah.
And the chaps in the OCD recovery program got well. Actually, um, Nick Koutsas was the first person to say, "Stop it, Tula." And so I did start to have a little more wiggle room with the symptoms in me with his sharing that. But when I got in the group, okay, I'm just going to be straight with you and listen, whatever works for you, you go for it. But I do not believe in taking every thought captive. We have 40,000 plus thoughts a day. That'd be like I'm a dog chasing my own tail. And if you have OCD, if you're at the level of OCD thinking, ain't no way that's going to work for you. Because what's driving the thoughts are these false, deeply held false beliefs. In my case, I'm not good enough. I need to I need to constantly be productive, A pluses,
Mhm.
whatever it is, I'm going to be doing that to try to prove that I'm good enough. I'm already good enough. God Himself created me. I'm a king's child. I'm good enough, period.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I know that now. But when I started this journey, I didn't. And when you have beliefs like that, they're going to keep fueling those obsessive thoughts. So, guess what the best thing you can do with obsessive thoughts or sensations is? Just let them be there, accept them. It's all about, in our program, we learn, and I'll show you the books, and we learn it's all about unconditional self, other, and life acceptance. Do you know when the symptoms started going away for me? And you've said this, Dan, I just didn't care about them anymore.
Right.
I never thought being indifferent to the symptoms would be possible. But here's how that happened for me, and I'll share this. I don't know if you can even see this book.
At Last a Life.
At Last a Life, uh, Anxiety and Panic Free by Paul David. I never heard about this in the TMS community. And fortunately, I'm not a big researcher. That was my one advantage in this journey. But I read this book, and basically what Paul David says is, let the anxiety have its way with you. Just let it do whatever the symptoms want to do, whatever the anxiety wants to do. You're trying to always force it down is why it keeps ramping up. So when I was in Cleveland, I was reading this in the post office while I was waiting. It was a long queue. And I had this moment, I can only describe it like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, where he's like moving around and like bullets are going around him, where I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not anxiety. I'm not panic. I'm not OCD. I'm not TMS. This is all like just the matrix. I can't, yeah, it's like I'm trying to say in words something that was so deeply felt in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I gave up. I said, all right, I am having a pretty good life right now. I went to a ball game. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you never go away, I don't really care. And from that moment on, ironically, when I stopped trying, I started getting a lot better, like phenomenally better.
Yeah.
But I think if you are in the audience and you feel, my gosh, I am so locked into these symptoms, the regular TMS stuff ain't cutting it for me. Check out the OCD recovery program with Robert Bray, because there's this other chap that we read, fascinating chap, Albert Ellis. I don't know if you can see this. How to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable about anything. Yes, anything. He's a psychologist who basically thought Freud was kind of nonsense and isn't helping people, going back to thinking about their childhood and just ruminating on it, making themselves depressed. What he teaches you to do is, in the now, dispute your irrational beliefs. So here's one that almost every TMS person I've met has: fear of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to have these symptoms forever. And if I do, my life is over. It's terrible. I can't stand it. That kind of catastrophic thinking, that's what you work on in OCD recovery. And there's something about putting pen to paper and actually having to say, wait, is this true? Could this be false? What are the other possibilities? It changed me. It
Right.
changed me. I mean, I was incredulous about working on these false beliefs, but little by little, I just saw my happiness going like this, and my flexibility. Oh my gosh, OCD people and TMS people, we get so rigid. Like, I have to be in bed right at 9, or I'm going to be tired,
Right.
or no, don't put the stereo that loud. It's going to hurt my, like, unbelievably amounts of control.
Right.
And we know what that does to the nervous system. Huge message of danger. I've noticed in this program, I just get more and more and more easygoing. I should tell a funny story.
Okay.
Yesterday in the pool, I was swimming and I had this, like, how do I describe it? Like a sting sensation in my hip while I was doing freestyle. I'm like, I've never felt anything quite that strong before. I reached back there and it was a yellow jacket had bitten me on my bottom. Now, if that had happened to me even a year before, I would have been in what I've heard you call it freak out mode. Here was my reaction now. Oh, that poor bugger. He just lost his life force by using his sting on me. And I
Right.
and I kind of brushed him off, put him on the side of the pool, and I kept swimming. Guess what? I didn't even feel the sting after that initial
Sure.
injection he did or whatever. That's what calm reassurance can do. Just kind of, this life isn't this serious. It's a fun, joyful, it's just so wonderful. It's beyond belief. And here's, since I am a person of faith, I kind of joked about this. When you tell people, I try to tell people to take your assessment, and some of them are very incredulous, or doubting Thomas's. And I
Hmm.
always think, do you do you know who the least fearful person was in the Bible? It was, here she is, a 14-year-old Jewish girl, good Jewish girl, Mary. She's snagged herself a good boyfriend, in Joseph's, got a promising job there as a carpenter. The angel Gabriel comes to her, a little bit nervous at first, tells her she's going to bear a Messiah, and she's like, "But Lord, I haven't been with a dude yet. How's that possible?" The angel Gabriel explains it to her, and what is her response? "So be it, your will be done." That should be our attitude when we take Dan's assessment. If it says you have TMS, you have TMS. And no one, and listen, I was in the wilderness for 5.5 years, so I'm not the poster child for this. Stop all the treatments. Stop all the worst thing you can do. And I'm queen of this. That's why I can talk about it. The worst thing you can do is, okay, I'm going to meditate. Okay, I'm going to eat like nuts and berries. Okay, I'm going to get plenty of sleep. I'm going to do all these things, these health things. And then here's what I'm going to do. Is it gone yet? Is it gone yet? Worst thing you can do. Just stop all that. If you want to eat some ice cream, eat some bloody ice cream. It's so fantastic. You need pleasure. If you want to go out and see a concert, like, I'm so bumming that I live in Phoenix now and the Rex don't come here. I love being the oldest person at Rex shows.
Right.
The last one I went to, I remember a guy said, "What are you, like a cougar or something?" I'm like, I'm like, "No, what, are you interested?" I was just joking, obviously.
Right.
Anyway, he and his girlfriend and I became friends after that because we're like Rex fanatics. But go to a show, live your life. Like Sarno says, if you're living to just get better, is that fun? Is that kind of pressure good for your nervous system? Does it even make you want to get up in the morning? Heck no, don't. Just go live your life. And I think it's, for someone like me, I want to share this for the people out there who are in big life transitions. I did leave my marriage. It wasn't working. I did leave. I had a 30, I think 30 years, the high tech executive.
Right.
Anyone who's in high tech knows the hours. And I'm very good at it. I'm a very perspicacious, bright gal. I left it. I'm doing a different career now. I'm a real estate investor, which gives me more time to write because writing is my purpose. I've known that since I'm 14. And guess what happens when you live your purpose? And I do think Joe Dispenza says this, although I'm not really a follower of his. I just hear good things about him. He says you forget about your body, you forget about time, you forget about your environment when you're doing what you love. And May 20th, after I got back from Cleveland and the joy of all that, I had always written every day after work. I started doing it again, except now it's much more purposeful because while I'm not on fire about TMS recovery, I'm on fire about people having a relationship with a higher power and leveraging that to get better. Because again, it's the same thing Sarno says. You were healed. It's all this layers of nonsense conditioning from, a lot of us had very traumatic childhoods. Get rid of the nonsense conditioning and go live your life and live your purpose. And when I write, I'm in such a flow state of joy. It's, can there be anything more healing than that? This is where I'll bring in one concept that people may think is a little out there, but it isn't. There's this chap, he used to live in Sedona. named David Hawkins. Have you heard of that chap?
The name sounds familiar, but it's a fairly common name. So
Right.
tell me more.
He he was a physician, psychiatrist, and researcher, like a research scientist. And he happened to be a person of faith. And he did these consciousness studies where he found that the mind has a consciousness level of 400, the body 200. So guess what? If your mind thinks you're well, if your mind's happy, living life, messages of safety, I'm good. Like Dan says when he was recovering, I'm good. I'm good.
Mhm.
Guess what? Your body's going to get the message because it's at a lower level of consciousness. It has to follow what the mind thinks. So when I met Steve Ozanich, that's the main thing that I learned from him. I'm like, oh, so where my mind is, my body's going to follow. The other thing that he said that, since I'm, a geek, I'm a bookish type. He said that the original ending to Moby Dick was there was no white whale. Captain Ahab was just chasing his own ghost, just the way we chase TMS. It's just a ghost. There's nothing wrong with you. That so
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
that's kind of my gestalt on some of that stuff.
yeah,
If
Steve did the mistakes that keep people in pain or symptoms. And the number one mistake is trying to heal.
Yes, yes, he's interesting. I enjoyed talking to him, but be ready, be ready. It's going to be a spiritual blitzkrieg. You talk to Steve. I'm just trying to. Do you mind if I look at my notes and see? I'm like Robin Williams, trying not to forget to thank his mother when he when he
All
won
good.
the Oscar.
It's all good.
Oh, I definitely need to thank Howard Schubiner. When I was in bedridden there, I sent him an email. Gosh only knows what the time was, and he responded right away and said, "It's TMS."
Right.
So what a wonderful person to
Yeah.
carry on Sarno's work. I have nothing but good things to say about him. And Matt Lack, that guy who recovered from one of the most serious cases of CRPS, and he did it in, very quickly. Very, very inspiring chap. I also want to thank my son for giving me a reason to keep going because I knew I'm learning to get in touch with my emotions. So I may cry. I'm learning how important purpose is. And when you're a parent, don't give up.
Right.
Because I have a son who has a mom, and I want to show him never give up.
Right.
You are more than an overcomer. So I want to thank my beautiful son, Trevor, and my adopted nieces, Sophia and Paige, who, when I sort of ran away from my marriage that wasn't working in Louisiana, they were two recent university grad students, and we just were like three peas in the pod. And they gave me reason to live that very, very dark year alone in the deep South. Who else is on here? Oh, Andrew Womack Ministries. So all the people on healing journeys today, including Dr. Kevin Chapman, if you are a Christian, if you're not a Christian, again, no worries, everybody's different. Andrew Womack Ministries. Andrew is fascinating. I was still pretty bad off when I came across his YouTube video called God Wants You Well. And that was the video that says, by his stripes, you were already healed. Walk out your healing in God. God never, and I'm going to really emphasize this because some of the Christians and other people of faith, I mean, I'm Jewish too. God never, never, never puts sickness on you, never puts a trial on you. It is always from darkness. He wants you well. He wants you prosperous. He wants you healthy. He is always for you, never against you. So if you are a spiritual person, a Christian, God wants you well. If you find that on YouTube, oh my gosh, will it lift your heart? Because I actually met some of these people. I met this chap, Mike Hesh. Mike Hesh had a tumor the size of a D cup breast. He actually had to wear a bra to support the weight of the tumor. And when he found God wants you well, you've already got it. You were healed. Just on that, he walked out in that confidence. Tumor disappeared in 8 months. That's the power of your mind over your body. And obviously, he was working on some, deeper false beliefs he had. And that the big one is the same one I had. I have to perform to earn love. If you're doing that, get help. You don't have to perform to earn love. You're lovable just the way you are, warts and all. And you don't have warts. You just think you do. I would actually seek them out, but analyze myself. Forget about it. It's all nonsense. Do you like the tablecloth dress, Dan? I'm like an early 60s housewife today.
You certainly look perfectly fine and nice. I
I'll
never
start
pay
singing.
attention. I never pay attention to that stuff. I'm more interested in the message.
All right. Oh, my heavens. See, this is why we keep notes. So something has been really helpful to me that I know has been helpful to other folks on the recovery journey. Somatic experiencing. Now, this is not for you when you are in the throes of somatic or sensory motor OCD. Paying even more attention to your body at that time, not the right thing to do. But when you do unlatch from that, and you will, right now, if you're latched, don't worry, you're going to unlatch and forget about your symptoms. When you do reach that point, and that's the other thing about the TMS journey, different resources are right at different times. Like Dan, I reached out to him early on. Why? Because I knew he'd say something incredibly sagacious, incredibly wise. He told me swim. And
Right.
honestly, swimming has probably been one of the most healing things I've done. But different parts of your recovery at different times, you're gonna call on different resources. I met this chap, Jake White. He's in Virginia somewhere who does somatic experiencing, but it's not just the one where you're like, oh, let me go down and feel my leg with messages of safety that might be cranky today. No, he does more of the like Peter Levine work where there's, you haven't felt emotions in certain parts of your body, they've been cut off. And it's time to just gingerly go down and start why I'm doing this is because, my heart,
Mhm.
my abdomen, some of these things I hold like this.
Sure.
Jake will be this very safe resource where you can go down and explore these very unhelpful patterns. Like one of mine is performing, to be honest. Like at work, I wasn't always authentic. I was like trying to put on a face of strength for all the people around me, and you know what? That's exhausting. And you know what? It's not particularly trustworthy because people are going to wonder why. Does she never have any problems? So he teaches you this kind of stuff. And yeah, he also teaches you to feel things in your body and bring
Right.
messages of safety. But I think Jake's very special. I'm extremely picky. That's why I end up watching Dan and Dan Ratner and the coaches I've mentioned. They're all so excellent, and Jake too. And one other thing I'm going to mention for those of you out there who, so when I was fed, so my natural body weight is about 115, 120. That's because I'm little. I'm 5'4". I was down to about 90
Yeah.
pounds when I was bedridden, and complete. I'd been an elite athlete my whole life. I was like a toothpick.
Right.
My arms, my legs, everything. So I'm not one of the people who will tell you don't get some physical support when you start doing athletics again. You don't need to get it, but if you want help, get help. I worked with Allison Lighthizer and Joseph Keeney, who do something called integrative manual therapy, which, while it's physically focused and does help me as I was going from 90 pounds to probably 120 now with the muscle I've gained and all
Right.
the athletics I do again, they kept my body sort of like used to, because I was lying in a bed, I was lying down for years. So I had to get used to sitting up again, standing,
Right.
working at a computer. They supported me physically as I went through that. And of course, integrative manual therapy has a really strong mind body connection to it. So if you're going to support yourself with something physical, here's the caution. Don't go in there with the idea of they're going to fix your TMS. They ain't. They ain't going to fix your TMS. But what they can do is support you physically while you do the work of TMS. And that's one other thing I want to bring up. I happened to get this in midlife. So unfortunately, I had tons of money to blow on therapy, like hospitals. I'm ashamed to tell you, I'm up there with Christine Barba and crew. I probably spent $500,000. I'm not kidding you, because I obviously I've been a very successful businesswoman. Alas, don't spend that kind of money. Don't spend that kind. None of that stuff works. What got me better was I spent $1,000 on coaching with the OCD recovery program. Healing Journeys Today, Andrew Womack Ministries, all that's free. Allie and Joe, very reasonable. I mean, that's like going to a PT appointment. I literally spent $1,000, and the $1,000 is what got me better. Because I have friends, several friends, who tell me, but I don't have the money to get better. Well, guess what? I didn't get better when I had money.
Right.
I got better when I had no money and had to do the work.
Right.
And now I make a lot of money again because I'm well. You'll make the money back when you're well. I'm being a toughie about that for some of you I know out there, because I've heard it as a stumbling block over and over again. And especially if you're a believer, that is a big fat lie. God will provide you the prosperity you need. If you need to go one-on-one coach with Dan, I know Dan, you're the top of the heap there. You could afford it. God will find a way for you to talk to Dan,
Well,
period. And
at this point, I'm not even doing one-on-one anymore.
oh, okay.
I only do group coaching and it's very affordable.
There you
And
go.
and I do daily videos, coaching videos every single day, and I have for over 5.5 years. So
I know. And Dan,
it's free videos. People are getting better just from the free videos. I did a success story this morning. They've never paid me a dime, but yet
wow.
they credit watching my free stuff with their success. So recovery is not expensive. Doesn't have to be.
You you are, I don't want to get emotional again. I will. You are such a blessing, Dan. You are such a blessing. Do you know I broke my ankle March 2019 when you first started doing daily videos? It's like
Mhm.
we had the parallel opposite journey there for a little bit. And I tell you, there are a lot of people in the OCD recovery too. Those chaps are serious about getting the word out. They have, like Dan, probably five. I don't. How many videos do you have now, Dan?
Over 2,000.
Wow. God bless you. Um,
Thank you.
the chaps at OCD recovery, the same. They have so many free videos, and there have been people recovering even with not. I wouldn't say the severest OCD cases, but OCD cases that are more mild, recovering just from free videos.
Yeah.
Please don't count yourself out because you don't think you have the money. And even with OCD recovery, what Rob does, he has a WhatsApp group that I'm on that you can get 24/7 coaching, and it is 24/7 because the majority of people with OCD in the world. I should ask that as a trivia question of you, Dan. Where do you think what geography do you think has the most OCD?
I mean, my biggest audiences are, North America, Europe, and Australia.
Interesting. It's the
Very
Middle
Western
East.
societies.
Yeah. The Middle East has the most OCD. So honestly, and we have tons of Europeans. That's probably number two. And number three is US and Australia. If all you can afford is one coaching session, which is I think about $100 with the way the pound is with the dollar, you can then get in one of the coaching groups where you have access to 24/7 coaching for the OCD piece of your journey. So again, very affordable. And Rob does that for a reason. Jake, the same thing. He keeps his rate so reasonable because he knows by the time people find him,
They've
they've
already
done.
spent their money. Yeah.
I've t- Daddy O, I've talked your ear off here, babe.
I'm gonna ask that you take some of these resources and either links to websites or whatever it may be, because the interview's gone pretty quickly and you've dropped a lot of names, and I'm sure a lot
Okay.
of people are going to start saying, "Who was this they mentioned? How can I find this person?" So if you'd be willing to, after we're done, doesn't have to
Yeah.
be today, but in the next few days, drop me an email with a number of the resources that you've spoken about that you would recommend that people look into, and I can put that information out in the description of the video if you're willing to.
Okay. And
Otherwise, I
how do
know
I
I'm
do
going to
it?
get a bunch of questions, and they'll be like, "Well, who did she mention, and what was this, and how do I find that person?" And I'm going to go, "Let me go listen to the hour-long interview and see what she said," and then I'll have to do Google searches, and so if you can provide some of the resources that you thought were important, book references,
Okay.
coaches, things that you think could really benefit some folks. And I really do love that you went into the whole, um, I spent $500,000, but it was only this thousand that mattered,
Yeah.
right? Because it's so easy to spend, spend, spend. It's not how much you can spend. It's implementation of core concepts. And I would say that most of those core concepts, if not all of them, are available for free.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, Dan, you're doing shorts now too. Oh, I love listening to your shorts. Even when I'm in the car, I'm like, just put a Dan short on to get a little juice. I tell
The
you,
shorts are coming out of the longer videos, though. I have an editor who chops it up and says, "Here, let me take this
oh,
60 seconds and makes a short for me." I don't record them separately.
you're happening, dude. I'll tell you one of Dan's concepts that I don't, you can tell, I really don't. If you talk to any one of my coaches, they would tell you, I really want to share this again. People seeing me may not realize what a sad sack. I was such a sad sack. You would have thought, oh my gosh, this woman's in her 40s. She's so depressed. She's 90, she's 90 pounds. She can barely talk above a whisper. She's hopeless. Okay, if I can do it and I'm a stubborn old bird, you can do it. Trust me, if I can do it, there's absolutely nothing special about me. You can do it. And when Dan says get the clarity, I didn't belabor this point, but I'm going to belabor it because I just realized this scares people. When I had that matrix moment in the Cleveland post office where I'm like, whoa, I'm not TMS. This is just the matrix. Guess what TMS did? What would be your guess, Dan?
I would say I probably threw a number of things at you additionally.
Exactly. Symptom imperative, and the symptoms went from, and I was dealing with the crap label CRPS, so it isn't measured on a 10 scale. It's higher than that in general anyway. It went up to at least 100, and guess what? It stayed there for days. And
Right.
guess what? I said to it, I looked it right in the eye, and I said, you know what? One of us is going to back down, and guess what? It ain't going to be Tula because I've got the clarity.
Right.
And when Dan says get the clarity, because guess what? About it was a full probably 2 weeks. I woke up one morning and I was like, wait a minute. And I lived in anxiety 24/7. I couldn't even sleep well. I mean, I
Right.
wasn't sleeping. My heart was pounding. I was having nightmares. I woke up and it was gone. This was in April. I haven't been anxious one moment since April.
Wow.
That's the clarity that Dan talks about. And don't be scared if it tries to subdue you. It's just darkness. You stay with the light. All right. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk
It's
people's
okay.
ears. I just love y'all so much. And I want to just for a moment, I just want to calm down. Out of my gift is exhortation, I've heard. Encouragement.
All right.
But
Well, I
I
appreciate
just
you
want to
showing
send
up.
everyone love. for just a moment? I just wanted us to, oh, I can feel your heart, Dan, but I just want to feel everyone's heart who's going to watch this. I really, really love you unconditionally. I'm probably the only person in the world with the name Tula. So if you need to find me, reach out because I know you can do it. It's inevitable that you're going to get better. And I just give you all my love and support. Peace.
Thank you so much. All right. I think we'll wrap it here. I appreciate you sharing your journey, your story, your resources, your insights. Definitely interesting stuff. I'm going to check out that um, the OCD recovery folks on YouTube. I'll look them up. Um, yeah, I've definitely gained some insights myself just hearing yours. So I appreciate you. And if I ever can do anything for you, Tula, just you reach out. I'll be glad to see what I can do for you if I can. But sounds like you're well on your way, and not even well on your way. You're through that big journey, and now you're saying, okay, what do I want to do when I grow up? And you're living large and enjoying life again. You found the joy. So super cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm building a website. So tulafay.com to use because I'm not the Greek version, I'm the Finnish version, Tula. Not
Okay.
the big fat Greek wedding version. The other one. All right. Lots of love, everyone.
All right.
Blessings.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Dan, so much, Dan.
I appreciate you, Tula.
Love you
Thank you.
big.
All right.